Another girl I knew used to like this one.
Alright, now that we have the casing off, you can see my test one's pretty gross inside. Which you see a lot of times in the pads, and these buttons are broken. We sell tons of these buttons on our site at MPCstuff. Same with the pads. A lot of this stuff just over time gets used too much and needs to be replaced. So let's put these aside. And now that we have this here, we're going to take the actual LCD screen out here. So what you're going to see is on each side, you're going to see a screw on each side here. You're going to take both off each side. It's just a Phillips screw that's going to come out. What you're going to notice when you're trying to use a long screwdriver or something like that, this right side is going to be tough because of these two buttons. What I suggest is to take these two buttons off by pulling in on each side. You can use a tool if you have to. You might have to push inward a little bit on the side of each to pop it up. But the good thing is once you get those out of the way, you can avoid running into them and breaking them off, and then you have to buy new buttons as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take each side of this off so we can get this screen portion out and pull it out. That way we can get to the back of it and we can change the LCD screen out. Alright, you may notice when you get these out, it's almost spring-loaded. Well, it is spring-loaded right here. So it's going to pop up a little bit. What I try to do is I always try to keep these screws just halfway out, because once they get out enough, they're going to pop out, and that way you keep them there, you don't lose them. It just makes it a little bit easier because they are slightly different than all the other screws that are in there. They have a more tapered head, and they actually have a thinner thread pitch on them. So keeping those separate even helps. That way you don't get mixed up which screw goes where. And now that we have this out here, and since we already did the underside here, these ribbons are going to be able to come out. What I want to make sure though is when you go on the underside, don't force it out. So you might have to go up underneath and figure out if there's anything that's blocking your way of getting it to come out. In my situation here, I just needed to get this one piece away. Sorry, you probably couldn't see that. But now that we're looking at it here, on the underside, you'll see this is already out and this is out here. This was stuck up top here. And now I'll be able to slide these through while pulling LCD on the other side. So now I've got this part removed. So now that we have this done, we're going to put this back down. And we're going to work on this part here. As you can see on the back side, it's pretty simple. There are 4 screws going in here. So we're going to take these 4 screws out and we're going to put our new LCD screen in. Alright, now that we have the 4 screws out of the back of this, we're going to go ahead and open it up. And you're going to put this aside. Make sure you don't get any dust in the top of there because that's going to go back on. And when you open it up here, you're going to see there is 4 screws, or 3 in this one because it looks like somebody's replaced this at some point. And try not to lose them, obviously, like whoever used this had this one before open. So you're going to put these screws right here. You need to take these 4 out. That way we can put our new screen in. You're going to need a smaller screwdriver on this type of thing. So you might need some sort of eyeglass screwdriver or something like that to get them out. So now we're going to take these 4 screws out and make sure we hold on to them because we're going to need them to put the new LCD screen in. Alright, now we're going to take, now that we've got it out, we're going to put the board in. Like we said, it's a different type of thing here. But what you'll notice about the board when you first put it on is this piece right here is going to be in the way. We have to get rid of this piece. You can cut it off. I found it the easiest. It's a non-structural piece. It doesn't matter if it's not there because the thing holding the LCD screen will be the 4 screws in here. What I found the easiest, honestly, is just to break the thing off. It's easiest just to use pliers, but you can even just push it off with your hand, just like that, and it'll come off cleanly. The way it's set up, it's got a hole in the center of it, so it breaks off very easily, and that'll enable this to fit on just perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and install this and show you how it works, and then after that, we'll put the LCD screen on it. Now that I have the controller board in here, we're going to go ahead and set the LCD screen on top. The good thing is it only fits in one way, but you want to make sure, obviously, not to bend the pins. So when you're putting it on, you're just going to get it right over the top of the pins, and make sure you press down lightly. You don't want to force it down, and just press it down. So after you have it in place,
you're going to want to take off the screen protector here before we put it back in to its shielding.
Alright, so now that the top's shut, we're going to put our screws back in on the back side, and we're going to go ahead and put the LCD screen back in. Okay, so now we're all set. We have our screen, it's inside, so now we just got to go ahead and put it back in the machine. Alright, so first things first, we're going to get this back in. It's pretty simple, just the opposite way we did before. You're going to feed the data cable through, which now, like I said, you're only going to need a data cable, so you don't have to feed the other one through. And just like before, how we left these screws just kind of staying here, make sure you put this all the way down so you can feel the spring-loaded action actually working, because if you just try to put it in on one side, you're going to end up not having the spring-loaded thing here, and you're not going to be able to tilt your screen. So let's go ahead and put these two screws back in, right here and here, and then we're going to start working on the back side. Okay, now that we have these two screws on the side, you can see it moves up and down. What I'm going to suggest now is we're going to put the top casing back on. That way it's easier when we flip this thing over. The front side's just all finished, all put back together. Remember, on my unit here, two of these buttons were broken, so I'm going to have to replace those. And we did take these two off, but I already put them back on. So don't forget to put those two back on. Let me get some new buttons here, and I'm going to go ahead and put my casing back on. I'm going to put the casing on, and then I'll show you where the screws are so we can put it back in. Alright, we're going to start by putting the 3 here and these top piece here. That way we can put the front panel back on. We're going to do the 3 here in front first. Let me go ahead and do those. Alright, once we have those 3 back in, then we can put the front panel back on. And we can start putting the screws for the front panel on each side. You have one here, then one's on the opposite side, the same ones that are the bigger ones. And then we're going to do our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the back side. So we'll have the complete casing on from the top, and then now I'm going to show you what we're going to do on the bottom.
Alright, now that we're on the underside, you can see our ribbon's coming through. So you need to take the ribbon coming out, get it underneath here, and basically when you put the ribbon in, it's going to go just the way that it went in before, with these, the pins, side out. So you're going to just put it right into there, make sure it's in there snugly, and you can also use the piece of tape to secure it back down against here. There's not much risk that it's going to be coming out of there just because there's no real pull on it or anything like that, but if you want just to make sure you don't get it buttoned up and it come out, you can put the tape back down on there. The LCD screens actually come with a little piece, so you can even use that if you want. Just make sure it's not too far down on the board. And you put it like that. And now we're just going to button it back up and put this back on, so I'm going to show you that next.
Alright, so once we got all the screws back on the back side, we got the ones here, and then we make sure, don't forget the 3 in the front panel here. We're going to turn it back around and I'm going to show you how the LCD screen works.
Now it's all installed. We've turned on the MPC, and as you can see, here's our LCD screen. You may notice you have to push the buttons and give it a slight second in between, just to prevent any screen lag, but everything's working perfectly here. We did it on non-inverted mode, but you can also invert the screen so it's opposite, which we'll show you after this. And here we go now. I'm going to show you one thing about the screen. If you turn it on and you happen to notice it looking, it'll probably more than likely look like this. All you got to do is hold the shift and hit the spin the jog wheel, and that'll put contrast back into proper spot. It's just some MPCs, when you first install it, you'll see that where it looks like it's the LCD is broken or something's wrong with it, but in reality you just need to change the contrast on it. So that's it. That's it installed on the MPC 2000XL, the MPCstuff Envision Electronics LCD screen. This is the standard look screen, and now I'm going to switch the little jumper pin that we showed you before. If you put the jumper pin to invert, I'm going to show you what that looks like now. And here it is in inverted mode. It's kind of a cool thing, kind of makes it look like a black screen, and that's when you put the jumper to cover both jumper panels.